Welcome to today's NASM Q&A classroom. I am Ashley DeVidoc, owner of the CPT Academy, and I instruct our course for the NASM CPT prep. So tonight we are going to cover a bunch of different topics that were submitted by people who registered. We do have some people I'm hoping that are going to join us live. I know that those who can't submitted some questions ahead of time, so we have some really good material here. I'm also going to be teaching a little bit about overactive, underactive muscles. So in the Q&A sessions, I always like to cover one topic so that you can get something out of it for certain, and also that you're going to get a feel for the way that I teach and see if any of our programs are going to be for you. All right, so before we start, it's just really important to always have our disclaimer that there is nothing associated with this tutoring that guarantees that you're going to have a passing score on your test. We do have an over 90% pass rate, so you have a very good chance of it, but it also follows a kind of recipe that we set out for you. If you look on my website, we have the full terms and conditions listed. That'll be at thecptacademy.com. But as we need to tell our clients in every single situation, anytime that you're going to engage in moderate or vigorous activity, there's always a chance of risk. So if we're talking about anything tonight and you choose to do it, then know that you are voluntarily taking on that risk. And also, again, like we always tell our clients, there's nothing we do that diagnoses or treats disease. Okay, so back to a few things about me. Some of the details I think that are the most important to kind of validate my position in instructing this. I have been teaching on the collegiate level, undergrad, grad, doctoral for the past 15 years. I am currently the certification director for WITS, which is a different NCCA accredited certified personal training certification. So I am in charge of that test. This is really important because with that, and also for varsity tutors, when I was one of 3 people that created their NASM study guide, you're trained by a psychometrician, which is a word that, most people are probably rolling their eyes at too, but that you're trained in developing standardized tests, understanding their design, their structure, all of these things. So it's not just being an expert in the material, it's being an expert in standardized test design, especially in our field in particular. So what I do outside of the teaching track, I specialize in science-based program design. I run a program design club, and with individuals, the only one-on-one training that I still do now is biomechanical analysis for professional athletes, and then from their results, I'll customize a corrective exercise program and also programming that will align with that to maximize their power output. So that is me in a nutshell. And we'll be able to jump right into the questions. So I'm just going to check and see if anybody else hopped on yet. We had a few questions that were submitted from the practice test. So this is great because if you haven't taken our free practice test yet, you may want to block your ears here, give yourself a chance to get these correct. But if you have taken it, or if you want to do it in the opposite direction, then you're going to have the answers for these 3 questions ahead of time. So the first question that we got was about the myofibrils. The question was, the contractile components of a muscle cell, known as the myofilaments, are contained within. The answer is myofibrils. So in both the full course and the basic science crash course, I go through step by step. We have the diagrams, I have a demonstration that we talk about how the muscle is structured from the outside to the inside. If you need just a quick reference, page 143 in your textbook, this is a nice little flow chart that explains the whole thing. So once you get down within the muscle fiber, we have the Z lines that are going to separate it out. So instead of cells like we have in other systems in our body, remember that the muscles are just going to be separated by these Z lines. And then we have what is in between those. That's going to be called the sarcomere. All right. So then we have a sarcomere repeating, repeating. That is just like all of the cells in one of your organs are going to be collected together. They're going to be stacked, though, to make the muscle fiber. Within those Z lines, we have the actin and the myosin, the thick and thin filaments that are going to alternate. And then when the muscle contracts, if we think of our knuckles as the Z lines, you see what happens. The Z lines move closer together. So that's a very popular question. But anyway, that's not what this question was. This question, again, says that the contractile components known as the myofilaments are contained within, and that answer is going to be the myofibrils. So we can see that here. Okay, so we had that question. We also had a question, which is a great one, asked a request to follow up on the phase 2 superset. So I made this question a little bit harder because if you get it correct here, there's no way you're going to get it wrong on the test. What you want to remember for the supersets is that there's a formula. It only happens in phase 2 and phase 5. In phase 2 and phase 5, we always start with the strength exercise. They're always going to be the same muscle group. So in real life, if you do supersets with opposing muscle groups, get that out of your head for the test. You want to just make sure, first thing is that both exercises are going to work the same muscle group. So that's the first thing we need to look for. If we have something like a chest press with a row, that's out, right? Because we're going to be working pecs and lats. We need to be working the same muscle group. Whether it's 2 or 5, they're both going to start with a strength exercise. Only the second exercise differs. If it's phase 5, then it's going to be strength followed by power, which makes sense because phase 5 is the power level. If it's phase 2, then we're going to piggyback with a stabilization. So most of the time, you're going to be looking for just traditional strength followed by single leg or stability ball. But remember, phase 1 can also be anything that's unilateral, not just single leg stuff. It could be a single arm. It could also be muscular endurance, but they're usually not that hard. So the answer that was correct, machine shoulder press, right? Anything that it doesn't even have to be a machine, but it's just going to be a traditional strength exercise, 2 legs, that is going to come first, right? We need that first. Now we see that it is a shoulder press, right? So we need to piggyback with an exercise that is also going to target the shoulders, okay? Here, what the selection was that is correct is a standing bottoms up kettlebell press. So picture this, when you are walking with that kettlebell overhead, how many arms do you have up? 1. So it's unilateral with the arms. So it's a little bit harder, but again, if you can answer them when they're harder, when you get into the test, it's all going to be easy. You don't want to get in a position where you get something like this on the test and you're only used to answering it the easier way. So the person who submitted this selected barbell squat followed by squat jump. What is correct about this is that it starts with a strength exercise, the barbell squat. It's going to work the same muscles, squat followed by squat jump. But squat jumps go into phase 5, right? That's going to be our power superset, not the phase 2 superset. Okay. So here it would have been barbell squat, say followed by a ball squat, right? Where the ball is going to be behind your back on the wall, or a single leg squat. Either of those would have worked. Okay. The third question we had is about the question, which exercise is most appropriate for a hypertensive client? So hypertension, high blood pressure. What you want to think about with these is, pick the exercise that is going to create the least swing of the blood pressure. Positional changes are going to not be good, right? They're even if we don't have high blood pressure, it's going to create a temporary change. If you do have high blood pressure, especially if it's not well controlled, then we just want to avoid those. The easy answer here is always look for the seated or the standing exercise, because then their head stays above their heart. That's where they're going to have the least swing. So some of the other answers, prone on your belly, right? Think of that position change. Supine on your back is really bad. Anything isometric that you're going to hold is also contraindicated. So for hypertension, just look for head above the heart. It's almost always going to be a seated or a standing exercise that is indicated. If they say contraindicated, remember, contra is against indication. Those are the ones that we shouldn't be doing. All right, so that's important that you read those questions very carefully, especially when you're in the test and you're going to be not thinking as clearly because there is a little bit of that other energy there. Okay, the muscle flow chart we did. So those were the questions that came in. The topic that I want to teach for us today is going to be about understanding a little better the overactive, underactive muscles. So this is my favorite topic in the whole book. I understand that I'm in the minority there, but I think the more you understand this, the better trainer you're going to be in real life, like not just passing the test. We have the overactive, underactive cheat sheet. That's great. But when you understand it, it makes it much easier to answer the questions on the test, but it makes you a much better trainer. All right, so this picture that we see on the right, this is in several places in the textbook. This is important because we need to have a visual that we're always thinking of the muscles as a pulley. Whenever one muscle is shortening or lengthening, its opposing muscle is doing the opposite of that. They oppose each other. So when you think right now, let's do biceps, triceps, right? If you're doing a bicep curl, you know that your bicep is contracting, your bicep muscles, but then your tricep muscles on the backside, they need to lengthen, right? That's what accommodates, allows for the biceps to contract without crushing your muscle, without crushing your bone. Your bone is the thing that we're going to leverage off of. Sometimes I'll hear people say that both sides contract, but think of what that would do to your bone. Your bone would just crush. So in this picture, they're showing it like a perpendicular, right? So that you can see this balance. But you want to think in real life, okay, that's my bones, right? So this could be the front and back side of your arm. Now, what they're showing is it's good for your muscle to contract when we're doing a movement. When we come back to rest, we want that muscle to lengthen to its resting length. If somebody has a chronically tight muscle, it's going to stay tightened up. It's going to stay contracted to some degree. So that's what we see here in the second picture. That say that you just have tight biceps. When you go to put your arm straight down, you're going to be limited. They're not going to be able to fully extend because your bicep is going to be tightening up and preventing that extension. So in our second picture here, we would see the bicep bunches up. But what does that do to the opposing muscle? The tricep is just has to stay stretched out. It never gets to relax. So what that does is weakens that muscle because the brain is sending the messages to that muscle to do its thing, and it can't because it's from this pulled out, lengthened state. Okay, so this is what reciprocal inhibition means. Think of like when you have a reciprocal relationship with somebody, right? It's working in both directions. Same thing with your muscles. So anytime one muscle contracts, the opposite stretches. If a muscle stays contracted because it is overactive, right? It is doing too much action, it can't get back to the right length, then it's going to cause that opposing muscle to lose its tone, its strength, its integrity. That stays stretched out, and now that one can't respond the way it's supposed to, and that becomes underactive. Okay, so you can also see from this picture how it pulls at the wrong angle. This is how we as trainers identify these muscle imbalances. It's not by coming inside their body, right, and looking at muscle length. It's by looking at how their body moves. So you have tight calves, it forces your feet to turn out, right? So this is with this one, we'd be able to see if they had tight biceps, it would be difficult to get their arm fully extended. All right. So that is the difference between balance and imbalance. Now, the next thing we want to remember here is that the interchangeable words mean the same thing. I see a lot of people get overwhelmed with these test questions because they can't even identify what the question is asking. Sometimes we're seeing what is the overactive muscle. Sometimes we're seeing which muscle is shortened. Sometimes they ask which muscle needs to be stretched. All you need to do is figure out which term is your default term. What works for you? For me, I still think of them as tight and weak. That's it. So if I got a question that said, what is the overactive muscle? I would translate it in my head, reword the question, which muscle is tight when this happens? Okay. So if they said which muscle is shortened, same thing. That's the tight muscle. If it needs to be stretched, think about this. If our muscle's too tight, what is the solution? We've got to make it longer. If our muscle is too long, it's lengthened, it's weakened, it's underactive. What do we need to do? You don't need to stretch that. It's already too long. You need to add that strength, that integrity back. So that is actually going to shorten it. Okay. And it's important that we can identify both because when we're correcting these, you can't just fix the tight muscle. You can fix that and that would be great, but that other muscle is still going to be lax until we bring that integrity back with these isolated strengthening exercises. Okay, so this follows up on a different question that we had. That's how I selected this topic. This is going to be about shoulders elevate. So before we even get into this, let's think about when do we see this as a movement compensation? This is not part of the overhead squat. Most of our checkpoints are going to be from the overhead squat. If we have our clients doing a pushing or pulling assessment, this is when we're going to see shoulders elevate, head comes forward. Those are the two things that we're watching for, and we're standing on the side. The pushing and pulling assessment, remember, these are assessments. There's not heavy weight here. We just want to see how their body moves. Sometimes I see people get those mixed up. So these are not exercises, right? This is not a strengthening exercise. This is an assessment. We just want to check their posture when they are doing things like in the book, they'll give us a standing cable row or a cable chest press. Okay. So Let's do this one because you can do it, you can see it, you can feel it in your own body. When your shoulders elevate, when you pull your shoulders up, what muscles are doing it? Whatever muscles make that happen are the ones that stay active in the people who do this as a compensation. They're overactive. So these are the muscles that are going to get tight and short. Now, you can already see, even if you don't know what the muscles are yet, you can see where they are. Because if this got shorter, my body would do this, right? So here we have neck muscles, upper traps, all right? It's always going to include the upper traps with these, but it also includes the levator scapulae, which now look at this. If you're thinking, oh, that looks like the word elevator, it is, right? This is the muscle that elevates your shoulder blades, your scapula, okay? So both of those are going to be tight and shortened. Now, when we're thinking, what opposes these? Most of the time, it's super easy. You just think if you can get that tight muscle, it's on the front side of the body. You just figure out what is on the opposite side of the body, just like biceps, triceps. This one is stacked a little bit differently. So where we have our upper traps at the top, underneath it, we have our mid and lower traps. So if you can right now kind of picture where these are, right? This whole thing. If it gets too tight here, you can see how your mid and lower traps underneath are stretched out and they're going to be stuck that way. And this is what gives people a weak mid back. Most people have a weak mid back, and there's not many exercises that are going to target it to correct that. That's why it's really important that we have things in our textbook like the ball cobras. Okay, so upper traps go tight. Nobody has weak upper traps, right? Nobody is doing the opposite of this. Everybody is elevating. So we're going to have the tightness up here. They're short, they're contracted, they're overactive. These need to be stretched. Upper traps and levator scapulae. So when you do the neck stretches, if you've gone through them, we have scalenes, SCM, levator scap. Okay, so you could feel those three neck muscles. Now, in this example, where the shoulders elevate, it only includes levator scap and upper traps. But here's my tip. You can combine shoulders elevate and the forward head position if you just remember what goes tight in the neck. All of the neck muscles, all three of those, scalenes, SCM, levator scap, those are always going to be tight, and the upper traps. So you just remember the three necks in a cluster and the upper traps. Doesn't matter if they ask you shoulders elevate or head comes forward. You're going to get it right as long as you know that they are the overactives. And then what gets weak is what opposes those. So we have those upper traps that cause the mid and lower traps to get stretched out, to lose that tone, to become underactive. Also in that little group, you have a triangle in your mid back. If you look in the appendix of your book, this is nice when you're trying to visualize these muscles, especially if you're a visual learner. If you're a kinesthetic learner, then do it by feeling them. But if you're a visual learner, go to your appendix, look at those, and then you're going to be able to see, okay, here's the upper traps. It stacks on top of the mid and lower. But the rhomboids is in that section too. So in my mind, this is how I think of shoulders elevate, head comes forward. We have the tight muscle group, the neck, upper traps, scalenes, SCM, levator scap. Done. Then we have the weak group, the triangle from the mid back, mid and lower traps, rhomboids. Okay, so half of it is understanding it, but now the other half of it is going to be actually getting this correct in practice questions. So I included 2 practice questions for us today. During a static postural assessment, you notice that your client has a forward head. Which of the following muscles is most likely to be shortened? So this applies what we just talked about, where we said all the neck muscles go together for both positions. So we could get rid of this first part. During a static postural assessment, doesn't matter. All that we need to see here is, okay, I'm going to highlight this for us. So we have forward head, shortened. So we ask ourselves, when the head comes forward, what muscle is overactive? All right. So we are looking for the overactive muscle. Most of the questions that NASM creates will follow this formula. Not all of them, but most of them will. Where if you know what muscles go overactive and what muscles go underactive, then you can answer the questions without even seeing that it's the forward head, because they'll usually give you only one overactive option and then 3 underactives, okay? That's why we have the cheat sheet. All right, so let's go through this. We have rhomboids, middle traps, lower traps, SCM. What did we just see from back here? Mid and lower traps, rhomboids are always weak. So I'm going to put after these underactive, middle traps, underactive, lower traps, underactive, and then we're left with this one. So you see, even just by eliminating these, now we're left with one, but we can also ask ourselves, like this is like a double check system. Does this make sense? Is this the right answer? If it's one of the 3 neck muscles or the upper traps, we're good. SCM, yes. Sternocleidomastoid is overactive. So that is how easy these questions can become when you kind of are looking at them through the right perspective. And one thing that I really push for is do the practice. We have hundreds of these practice questions to go through that you can really master this, because then the part of the test that's usually the hardest for people can become the easiest. It's just a matter of every question, figure out, weed through it. What are they actually asking, right? And then find that answer. Okay, let's do one more. You observe your client's shoulders elevating during a pushing assessment. So what really matters here is we know, okay, shoulders are elevating. Which muscle would likely be underactive? So this is asking the opposite, all right? So this is asking for the underactive or weak muscle. So let's think about it again. All this stuff in the neck is going tight. The things underneath it, that triangle in the mid-back, is going weak. So we see scalenes. This is going to be a tight muscle, right? That's one of those neck 3. Levator scap is one of those neck 3. Now, we didn't talk about it here tonight, but lats go tight too. So this leaves us with lower traps. Now, let's say for some reason you didn't even know yet that the lats go tight. Then you would just be left with only 2, lower traps and lats. And then you can ask yourself, okay, do I remember what we talked about? Where's the group that goes weak? And that's going to be mid and lower traps and rhomboids. So it matches up. That is going to be our correct answer. Okay, so that is everything that I had prepared. A couple things that I wanted to talk about the programs that we offer. If you're interested in doing anything more, we have some free options coming up, and then some of the products that we offer in courses too. If you're interested in doing the complete tutoring course, this would be my #1 recommendation, especially if you have time to go through everything, or if there are several topics or more that you need help with. This, we offer the money back guarantee. It's 37 hours of teaching, and it's taught kind of like this. If this worked for you tonight, then it's all like that, covering the entire course where we simplify the complex science, make it easy, and then practice how to get that information correct in the test format. So altogether, there are 750 questions. At the end of that, there is a 120 question practice final. So this is designed to match the exact number of questions that you're going to get in every section in the test. So you can score yourself, but then we have a 3-hour explanation video. So you can watch the whole thing. You can go to any questions that you need, use it however it best suits you to make sure that you're not just getting them right, but you understand why. Or if you're not getting them right, then you can go do that. And this will also make references back to topics that you would want to revisit, brush up on, go to for the first time, however you're using it. Now, in addition to that, because of my background, we also teach how to study, how to plan your time, like to know for each topic, how much time do I need this week? Knowing the test structure, the number of questions that come from each section. What is your strategy for that section? Are we looking for a lot of points? Does it not matter at all? For most people, we can figure out a structure where there is minimal pressure on you to get the basic science stuff even correct, that we just ice the cake with that. Something that is new, I think, for almost everybody I work with is a test strategy, right? How to take a standardized test and have your own strategy for how you're going to approach the questions, how you're going to skip through, double back, all of these things. We cover all of that and make sure that it can be customized for your needs. The other thing that is really important to me is providing top-notch customer service. So even though it's recorded, we always have these, right? We have the live Q&As. Where any questions that you still have, you can bring to the Q&A. But if you reach out to me for anything, I will get back to you. It's always been very important to me that we provide the support that our students need. Okay, so if you're looking at what is the value of the course, say you did all 37 hours at $100 an hour tutoring rate, that's going to be $3,700. Some of the bonus features that are included, the full practice test that we talked about with the video explanation, 750 guided practice questions, the cheat sheets for the overactive, underactive, but also for the exercise library, where we teach how to classify every exercise in every chapter and the most common test questions associated with each exercise. The customized study schedule, the test structure breakdown, test strategy planning. And then through all of it too, I like to just teach in a kind of format that is like this, very laid back, that you almost feel like it's happening live in a classroom. I am a classroom lecturer, so that's what I'm used to. So I like to also include a lot of practical business advice as we're moving through the course, that you're going to be prepared to apply this most effectively when you get into the field. Then all of that testing education. So a little bit of what we did tonight, right? Learning how to identify keywords, eliminate wrong answers, um, and then adapting for your individual needs. So I have done a lot of teaching for people with developmental disabilities or other issues with testing. So all of that is kind of cooked into the way that it's presented. Okay, so the reason that we have it recorded is so that we can reach a lot of people with this. Now, the regular price for the course is at this time of recording is $199. But we're running a flash sale now, so there's still a few left for this one. Once we hit 10, then we're going to go up to the first 10, which has already started. We'll get the entire course, including the money back guarantee, for 49. Then the next 10, it'll go up to 99. The next 10, it'll go up to 150, and then we're back to the current rate. So there are still a few spots for the 49, but then it's going to just jump up. You don't even need a code for this. You'll see where we're at on this scaling process just by going to the website just to check out. You'll know. Okay, if you're not comfortable starting with the full course, we also offer the mini courses. These are the topics that I get requests for the most. So these are all of this information is included in the full course, but these are just kind of breaking them away, and then you would receive just this topic, but be able to master each of these. Overactive, underactive muscles made easy. That also includes bonus material about biomechanics and the planes of motion. The basic science crash course. So this, we go through every chapter that is part of the basic science section, section 3, but I'll explain what is really important. And then our note sheet for that has highlighted areas. So if you only have time or you're not going to put a lot into this, it's not a big part of your strategy, you're going to know where do you get the most bang for your buck by trying to study and learn select topics. The complete exercise library review. So that's where I go through that cheat sheet and we talk about the kind of keynotes of what is a core stabilization exercise. How can you identify that it's this versus core strength versus core power? We talk about exercise tips, precautions, progressions, regressions, all of the things that the questions come from. And then the full practice test, which includes that video as well. Okay, oh, one other thing I wanted to say about this. We, again, at the present time, if you sign up for any of the mini courses, if you're not ready to commit to the big thing yet, but you sign up for the mini course and you like it, you'll automatically get an email with a code that will allow you to apply whatever you paid for the mini course towards the full course, as long as it's within just, a few days of purchase. So I say that because I want, I'm just kind of a person that likes full transparency. Um, so if you're not ready to do this yet, you want to try something else, then you can try one of the small ones. You'll still have the opportunity to get to this. I just don't know wherever we're at is where we're going to be at here with the scaling process. So if there's any delay, I just can't guarantee that it's still going to be this price. But you could also check that ahead of time. So if you purchase one of the mini courses, then you'll be able to apply that in the time frame that you'll get in the email. If you haven't taken the free practice test yet, here is the link. I recommend that everybody do that just to kind of get a sense of where you're at. So what happens next? For everyone who's registered, you will get today's PowerPoint and the recording link. For those who have not been registered but are watching this online, then reach out to me if you would like a copy of the PowerPoint or any other resources that I could help you with. Take that free practice test whenever you're ready. And then hopefully I will see you all signing up for the full course or get started with the mini course. And don't forget, you can always, there's no pressure to buy. You can always join us for a future Q&A. So we do these, usually try to do them twice a month. You have my email address here. Contact me with any questions, Ashley at thecptacademy.com. And just a couple other places that we offer free resources. If you want to follow us on Facebook, I do test tips of the day. So you're going to get a lot of little gems there, and every day there'll be a new post. You also can learn more about, um, just like test the NASM test in general and tips through our blog, the practice test like we already talked about. And then our next live Q&A is scheduled for October 28th, tentatively at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. For those who couldn't make it live, let me know if it was the day of the week or the time. I like to try to do it later in the evening. I'm Eastern time, where basically the whole United States could be available. That's what I'm hoping. We can move to a different time if enough people request a separate time. We're going to try a different day next time. So we'll be moving to Monday night. So that will be Monday, October 28th at 7 p.m. And I hope to see you there. So thank you for watching and best of luck with all of your studies. I hope to be part of the journey with you.